你好，欢迎来自中国的听众。我们非常高兴被评为贵国家庭与园艺类前100名播客之一。感谢我们的听众。如果可能的话，请打个招呼，并给我们发电子邮件，让我们具体知道您是如何发现我们的节目，以及您所在的地区或城市。我们很希望能更多的与您联系。再次感谢，希望您继续收听并享受我们的节目。
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Of Northwest Ohio to the desert sun and the coastal glow, we took those front porch Friday nights right into the heart of the city lights.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just ain't typical. I am Donna. This is my brother, Eric, in case you don't know. And we are the Real Siblings. By the way, for those of you who are listening, he just waved, just so you know. We are both professional realtors with Keller Williams. And today we're going to talk about things that are totally wrong or maybe a little right, because our goal is to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. And to be fair, our conversations go in many directions, and we acknowledge that wholeheartedly. So with that being said, we're hoping to better equip you for your next real estate transaction. Eric, what's up?
For those of you who are regular listeners, and if you're brand new, you're going, why did it start out with a lady's voice reading Chinese? That's what language that was. And the reason for that is recently, in all of the podcasty stuff that I look at, check out, a service called Mopods allows you to check charts and how your particular podcast, in this case, our podcast, is charting. And it astounded me when I first got on that the first report I got was for China, and that we are ranked right around 100 in podcasts in home and garden in the nation of China. So as a way to acknowledge that, because I don't speak Chinese, I offered you the opportunity to quick learn some Chinese since you're the language person.
I could probably say hello, and that'd be it.
Used Google Translate, recorded it, put it on at the beginning of this. And for those of you who are listening straight to the video feed on YouTube, you're not going to hear any of it. But what we did for you is, ta-da!
Backgrounds.
New backgrounds, trying to do a little bit more intentional branding 4.5 years in.
I was going to say nothing like Russian.
Timeliness is everything.
Yeah. So Eric, is it Mandarin? Like, because the school that Jessica is principal of, one of the languages they speak there is Mandarin. So I'll be interested to know, like, what
we'll have to have Jessica listen and see if
she understands anything.
Any of it. I mean, just because you're the principal doesn't mean you're part of the language program, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so beyond Chinese, what are we going to talk about today, brother?
Well, okay, so this episode, or potentially series of episodes, is inspired by sitting in a room the other day going, just because something's right doesn't make it wrong. And it just struck me the way it was presented. Things aren't just always wrong and wrong. Sometimes they're right and they're wrong. Sometimes it could be wrong and right. And sometimes if the cosmos, if the universe, if we're being smiled upon, then everything is right. And so from there, I said, hey, I think maybe we've got a topic here because we have a lot of times when we could relate stories to things are wrong and things went wrong. And
it's much easier. I think it's easier that we get into those sometimes than all the things that do go right.
we're supposed to celebrate. We're all taught. You celebrate your success,
Right.
right? But we dwell on what went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you read reviews, even I talked to Dan the other day, our brother Dan, and even mentioned to him, it's like, yeah, we just human nature. If you have a bad experience at a restaurant, you're far more likely to tell people, oh, don't go there, don't do this, don't do whatever. And from our standpoint, from a real estate perspective, man, if someone says something bad about us, that can go a long way.
Right. Way more than the 20 or 50 or the ones that are positive, right?
All the ones that are good going, oh yeah, I mean, in our cynical world of social media, people can fabricate, have friends. It's like, hey, I need a good review. Give me one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So that wrong. What's wrong, sister?
So we're going to talk for a little bit about those things where bad client decisions, bad realtor guidance. I hate to say in air quotes, I do the horror stories, by the way, you know, all the things that coulda, shoulda, woulda, what's the comedian that says the holy trinity. I'm sorry.
And it's only the end of March. We shouldn't have horror stories until October.
Oh, I know. Oh, geez. No, there's a comedian, I think Gary Goldman, and he's like the holy trinity of coulda, shoulda, woulda. I forget how he calls them, but you know, it's funny because in hindsight, we always do that, right? With our things. And so what for you, how might this start? So if we were talking about, you know, every deal has two sides, right? There's the buyers and the sellers. There's the buyers and the realtors, the sellers and the realtors. I mean, and then we turn into four, right? We have buyers, sellers, and then usually two other realtors. So poor pricing.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start because we get coached on that a lot at our offices. It's like nothing can make up for poor pricing.
Right.
And as we always do, talk beforehand. And I mentioned that when I am teaching pre-licensing courses here to future real estate agents, one of the things I emphasize to them is that you're self-employed. This is your business. There's expense associated with your business. And when you are working hard to generate and get in the door and get that first transaction, and you know that the person who's willing to interview you and that you're talking to is now suggesting a list price that you know is not accurate, it is not within the market, it's a whole lot less easy or harder to walk away and say, okay, I've worked really, really hard on getting here, getting in the door and everything else, but if you're not going to listen to me, I'm turning around and walking out. But are we not coached that way? That it's like, look, sometimes you have to be willing to say, no, this isn't going to work for me. Goodbye.
It needs to be, you know, we talk about clients interviewing us, but we have to interview them too, because sometimes there's a lot of red flags, that being one of them, you know, or let's try. And then we overprice the house because they want to try, even though in our hearts and in our minds, you know, that's probably not going to happen. But do we want the business so badly? And then in the end, it's not business anyway, because it doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell. And then they get upset with us. And where does that poor review come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now it's bad for everybody. And those are not easy conversations to have.
Right. Right.
And I do not think the general public understands how much the market can change in a short amount of time. They feel like it's real estate, and a house that's worth $300,000 2 months ago should still be worth $300,000. Not bearing the fact that, hey, guess what? The neighbor just down the road just went under contract because they were $280,000.
Right. I also think, going through it is, and you and I, again, in our pre-conversation, I talked a little bit about, I've been doing a lot of estates lately. I've had a lot of kids and grandkids who have inherited properties from across the country, never lived in the house, don't know that much about it. Maybe they're power of attorney, maybe they're trustees, maybe somebody has already passed. But at the end of the day, they don't know that much about the property. And these are listings, right? They don't know that much about the property. And they may or may not have the funds to do what the market is dictating. So, Dad's house is from 1980, which is hard. It's hard for me to think of the 80s as that long ago, but it was long ago,
No, wait, when you say Dad's house is from the 1980s.
No, this isn't this is air quotes Dad's. Somebody's managing somebody's managing their
dad, all right,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You had to sort my brain out on that.
It wasn't our dad. Dad's house that we're handling is from the 1980s, and we've never lived there. And we know that Dad didn't do a lot of work on it. And then you find out not only did Dad not do a lot of work, there's stuff in the attic, the roof needs replaced, and kids are like, I want to sell it as is. Well, as is still means that the buyer gets to do an inspection, and as is might be way worse than what they expected when they made the offer. So it doesn't mean they made a wrong decision when they made the offer, but now we're dealing with a seller who we have to guide, hopefully, to the point where a deal can come together, because that's what we want. Everybody wants it to be done. Some sellers can afford it. Some can't. And that's not their fault. But I think that it's easy as a realtor. Okay, I'm just going to be 100% honest. Don't you start thinking about what your commission is going to be on a house when you put it under contract. Don't you preemptively think, yes, of course we do. Everybody that lives by commission, I believe, thinks about that. And at the end of the day, if we make decisions based on that, then we're wrong. Because then it goes into priced wrong, maybe, and realtor wrong. And we're looking at.
And you are wrong and wrong. Are you wrong for taking it as the realtor? Are you wrong as the seller going, this is what I need to make?
Right.
If I'm going to pay you and pay off and pay, in this world, we have short sales.
Yep.
And short sales are not because they're only going to take 10 days.
No, not short, not that way.
It's short financially. And what is that? Is that because of they can take care of the primary lien, but they had a secondary lien? Is there some life decision that happened?
Right.
Because this is not a judgmental thing, but there's the reality that, guess what? When you had to replace the roof and you borrowed and created a second lien against it, now you can't settle them both. And the primary lien is going to be settled. Primary mortgage is going to be in the first position. Everything else is secondary. And honestly, I'm sure you've been through it. I had one recently where all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, they didn't tell me they had chosen not to pay their property taxes. Oh. So when I did my seller's estimated net proceeds, I was off by more than I normally am. I normally can get down to where I'm within 1% of what I figure the estimated net is, and all of a sudden, bam, here comes thousands of dollars
that you didn't know about,
that I was unaware because it hadn't been communicated. Should I have asked? Yes. Was it a short sale? No. But was I off the mark? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so if we go back to, starting out wrong, the seller wants a price and we price it and we go, okay, so the agent agrees to it. Then what happens? The home sits on the market, doesn't it? Because it's overpriced. And then what?
And then we as agents, do you not get questions from other agents going, why has it been on the market for so long?
Oh, yeah.
What's wrong with the house?
Right.
And I have to try to
we're saying right and wrong a lot. Makes me laugh.
I have to try to explain that too, because there are transactions where a house is pending and it doesn't close. And it has nothing to do with the seller, and it has nothing to do with the property. It has to all do with the buyers and something that comes up from a credit standpoint, something that comes up from a purchase decision. You know, commercials and televisions in their 30 seconds that they have do a really good job going, yeah, and you don't have to pay anything for 3 years. Get your new house furnished. And they're like, wow, I can go buy my furniture. And the next thing you know is there's a debt created for thousands of dollars, which changes the DTI, which changes but the perception within the public when those happens.
Brother, what is DTI?
Debt to income ratio.
Just want to say.
And suddenly the buyer doesn't qualify, but there's something wrong with the house, is the perception. 90% of the time, very, very few people see a house that comes back on the market and thinks that the buyer did something wrong. It was all about the house.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, you know, we talked about, or you mentioned, maybe they don't have the money for whatever that for thing is. I never make recommendations to my sellers to paint the house. I think paint is a personal decision.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to spend thousands of dollars to change the paint in a house? If you painted walls blue or pink or polka dots, or the family artist who you let the teenage daughter or son who's a good artist paint their bedroom wall. Do you spend the money to paint that over? Oh yeah, point to yourself. Why are you pointing to yourself, sister? Because
remember when I had a jungle?
Listening to this,
I had a jungle.
You painted your headboard.
Caleb's bedroom had a jungle in it, and they informed me that the size of the monkey was like 5 times bigger than it should.
Caleb was always quick. You walked in, it's like, can you see everything that's wrong with this? But that wasn't your second one. I thought you were talking about your bedroom in the 1868 house in Lindsey, where you had purple walls and you painted a floral headboard.
I did. I painted a headboard on that. I can't, man, you remember stuff. You know that our brother Dan would have no idea what you're talking about. But and the thing is, it was purples because we had painted the walls purple, but also then whatever colors Dad had. I don't think I went and bought paint. But you're right. It was painted, well, when they sold it, no, it turned into a boy's bedroom later. So I'm pretty sure it was still purple.
So do you paint those things? I just had been in a house the other day, and it was very much a 1970s harvest gold. Should you have told the sellers, no one's ever going to buy this? You got to redo your kitchen.
Yeah.
And then you get the guy who's nostalgic, who grew up in that harvest gold kitchen, going, oh my gosh, I remember that stove. There was some movie we were watching the other night, was one of those ones where it's like, okay, this is not happening right now. I know this is a 2025 movie, but there's got to be some sort of flashback, because that kitchen, that harvest gold stove was in our house.
Yeah, like Elvis's house in Memphis.
So that we're doing the wrong.
Right. Right, we're doing the wrong. Sorry. Yes, we are.
That's correct. There's too many jokes that can go into that. What makes wrong for one thing? And we have to try to guide for the general population.
Correct.
You can't try to market to 10% of the potential market. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
No. If you have a house in a price point that reaches this, can you market that to only 10% of the potential market in order to keep some feature or highlight some feature that the sellers necessarily don't want to change?
Now, you and
Or
Dan
don't have the ability to change.
You and Dan were both active duty military. Did you live in base housing?
Yes. When I was in Germany, I was in government housing.
So from what I remember, everybody, their walls were like white or beige, like that.
Yes, they were some shade of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So whether you weren't allowed to or whether you did, but then they had to go back to white. So it's interesting having military brothers that was a thing, and nobody would have had their purple wall probably when they left the house. It would have had to have been changed. I don't know if that's still the rule, but.
No, it was. We painted the nursery in Germany. Not the whole room. We did kind of a partial way up and put a border up, but we had to take the border down and we had to repaint.
Yeah.
When I was left in country after the family had left,
you took care of that.
I took care of getting that taken care of so that I could clear quarters and get out of the house. So you patched holes, you did those kind of things.
So as I think we want to switch to the right, wrong thing. But before we do, the takeaway from this related to pricing, related to timing and all of that is that hope is not a strategy. And we all want to have hope and we want to turn over our St. Francis's in the yard, upside down or whatever. I have someone doing that again right now about selling their home. But at the end of the day, sometimes we, as realtors, we have to do the right thing. I shouldn't say sometimes. We always need to do the right thing. And yet, things can go wrong from both sides because we want to be accommodating, because we want hope to be a strategy, that kind of a thing. So if we move out of wrong, Eric, into right and wrong, then what?
Okay. And for right and wrong, this is where the client is doing the right things, but their choice of expert professional to guide them through this process goes awry. We have discussed in several episodes, for example, that because of where I live, because of what I do, I dabble and do more things than you do. And you had mentioned in a recent previous episode, you had no problem referring to somebody when you knew you were not qualified.
Yeah. I'm old. Don't want to learn a lot more.
But my point in the first example of when I talk to future agents, you're licensed in the state of Arizona. Could you help a client who has a place up in Flagstaff market their house?
In theory, yes. In theory, because I'm licensed in the state of Arizona. I'm not a member of that MLS system. I don't even, I partner with Eric Romero quite a bit. And Eric is a member of the Phoenix MLS because he grew up halfway in between. We have agents who work in both markets. I had someone from Lindsey that lives up there talk to me about maybe selling their house in a year. And could I sell it? Could I? Maybe. Should I? Nah. I should refer it to someone who knows their market really well.
And that goes back to, in Texas, what they consider to be competency. It's not just you're competent in residential real estate, but you are competent within a geographic or a metropolitan area. Texas, second biggest state in the country, lots and lots and lots of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
As a farm and ranch agent, a little bit broader scope, but can I effectively represent someone clear out towards El Paso from the hill country? When it takes me, if I was going to go there personally,
8 hours,
I'd have to fly or drive 8 to 10 hours and all of those things.
Yeah.
Helping family members. there are times where it's like, well, I'm going to help you out. And this is the person who said, I'm going to give my new family member who's recently licensed an opportunity. Should you do that? Those can be tough learning situations, working for family, because while they're doing you a favor,
they think they're doing the right thing.
They're going to expect something.
Right. The clients are doing the right thing because they're asking family to help. We as agents, in my opinion, would be wrong in saying we will do those things.
Correct. And even you deal a lot more with luxury properties than I do.
Some.
But
I have the whole spectrum, Eric.
Well, and so do I.
Yeah.
I mean, within 6 weeks of each other last year, I sold someone who was a 52-year-old first-time home buyer, 1,200 square foot. And I sold somebody else who was first-time home buyer, 3,600 square feet. The price point alone said this is a luxury property. Mm-hmm. But there is luxury and there's luxury. I don't want to wear a designer suit and a tie in order to go. And there's a certain amount of you get into that market. Mm-hmm. There's an expectation. If you're going to open the door, you better be dressed to the nines on an open house. It better not just be a standard open house.
Eric, let me ask you, because you and I both live in kind of, well, you're definitely casual situations. Tucson is just casual. Texas, where you are, is casual. Doesn't mean that Dallas is, right? It doesn't, but that is definitely a thing here. And I sort of laugh about it because at our awards ceremony the other night, I danced barefoot because my feet hurt and I'm not a heels girl. I never needed heels because I was tall. And there are many times that I feel like if somebody was just looking and choosing based on that, would I fit that mold? Doesn't mean I couldn't sell the property. It doesn't mean that I might not be the right decision for someone to choose, but we all make choices,
And we're doing the right wrong that way, where the owners are doing things right, and we're having addressed the agent does something wrong.
Yep.
The agent is the one who you mentioned at the beginning of this episode. If you have in your mind how much money you're going to make as a commission, do you overprice it? Because we know there are agents who go, why did you list this house for this?
It's interesting that you bring that back up, because I just had that phone call before we started with recording with the seller that I was telling you about. And in today's world, there was a request for the seller to pay the agent's, commission. And my seller doesn't want to do it. She essentially said, she goes, you worked harder at this than she did. And there's maybe some truth to that. I also know the seller's situation. I know her finances. I know what she can afford to do. But bottom line is what I said. If you lose a deal over your lack of desire or your lack of ability to pay that requested commission, then in my opinion, shame on the other agent, because I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't allow a deal to fall apart for 1% if I know honestly the seller can't afford to do it,
And I know that I had brought up in the past a luxury listing that I had where I was in the house. I was the person opening the doors, part of the service price point.
Right.
I'm going to be there to open the doors. You're not going to. The agent was in front of the house with his client buyers behind him. And he said, hey, I just realized you're only paying this. I don't show those houses. And they drove past and they never looked at the house. Didn't matter that it could be exactly what they were looking for. That was already in the neighborhood.
Wow.
had the number of bedrooms that they needed, had those things, had the swimming pool, had all of the, but he chose to drive away because he wasn't going to get compensated what he thought.
Wow. You know what? So we've talked right now about the buyers or sellers doing the right thing and the agents maybe not doing the right thing. What about when we have clients who have been told they have to respond in 24 hours and then they just don't? And so we're doing our jobs and this all goes back to communication, right? Okay, I told you there's going to be certain things that happen during this process that if I tell you you have 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or 5 days, we're supposed to get it done.
Right.
Not I'm at a dinner with friends and I can't tonight. And I think because I live in that world where I'm assuming you do too, we as realtors who are full-time, hardworking, successful realtors, that sometimes this morning I sent a document to somebody when I was up at 10 till 5 to sign. They are school teachers. I wanted them to hopefully see it before they got to school. They may or may not get it signed, and it's not due till later today, but I wanted to make sure it was done because it's due, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we have to make sure our clients are coached and are also doing the right thing.
That is why we, as more seasoned agents, have a list of preferred people that we work with, whether that's lenders, whether that's title, whether that's whatever that is, inspectors, repairmen, handymen.
Yeah.
Because we have a certain, not only of their quality of work, but their communication.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both probably have a list of, you're never going to use them again.
Yeah.
Got to watch out for an offer from.
Yeah.
Whether that's the agent on the other side of the transaction.
Yeah.
Whether it's the brokerage, because we're the agents who own the relationship technically, or not even technically, because the broker is the one who owns the relationship. We're the voice and the one communicating. So it could be because of experience with a past agent who worked for a brokerage. And it's like, if that's the way they're going to do business, I'm not going to work with them. Could be something that happened with the broker.
Yeah.
Could be something that happened with the title company. Could be something that happened with an inspector, loan officer, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different ways things can go sideways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then all of those things, it is we, the real estate agents, who ultimately own the relationship. We have been in more contact with the sellers or the buyers than anybody else. Loan officers, mortgage officers may never meet them. It's a voice on a phone. It's a video call.
Yeah.
Inspectors. I know there's times where you've had inspectors go into a house and the buyer has never met them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're not even in town. Yeah.
Because they're not there. And it's like, so who's going to be the person who interprets and potentially has the conversation? That's us. No one is ever going to be closer to our clients than us, regardless of all the different services and everybody else who's involved in this transaction. My morning, you talk to school teachers. My morning was school teachers going, hey, I got this, but he didn't. Don't we both have to have this email? For whatever reason, he didn't get the whatever to register. And so before the day started, they're calling me. So there's right. There's wrong. There's,
I think we almost
wrong, and we're going to go into this some more because there's some other things. I think we've gotten to that point where we talked about this. There's going to be part 2.
Yep. And the takeaway on this is who you hire matters, right? And that we as agents have to do the right thing. And it's going to be really interesting to see how much we ramble on the other side of this until we get it perfectly right.
Ooh, that would be correct.
Because we acknowledge that we do not always get it perfectly.
And you know what? There is a point where we just have to acknowledge too that life happens. Mm-hmm. Life happens on all sides of this. There are so many things that can happen in a transaction.
Yeah.
From start to finish. You would like to say they're all rainbows and unicorns?
Yeah.
They're not. Going back to my teaching, there's a point where I get to kill off one of my students, emphasizing the fact that it is the broker who owns the relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're in the car and get taken out of the ability to complete a transaction, the broker is required to step in, assign somebody else to take over that transaction.
Yeah.
You're the one who worked hard. You're the one who did all those things, but life happens. Life happens and can unhappen. Mm-hmm. We've had transactions where someone in the transaction has passed away, one of the parties. Guess what? That can terminate and end with a lot of different work that's going on that nobody has
ever
any control over.
Right,
wrong, best. Everybody's doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And
yeah. All right, brother, I got another call in a little bit. So you want to wrap this up?
Thank you, everyone, for listening, joining us for this latest episode of Real Siblings. It Ain't Easy. We sincerely appreciate that you are committing time and taking time out of your day or your week to spend with us. As we wrap this up, we're hopeful that our insights, conversation have helped you better prepare for your next real estate transaction. At least maybe fired some synapses to go, Our goal is to help you find the perfect home to build your wonderful life. Remember, we're both real estate agents with Keller Williams. I'm with Keller Williams Heritage in San Antonio, Texas. Donna is with Keller Williams Southern Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. We are both able to help you in our specific geographic areas because it would be wrong to work outside of them. If you need help outside of our areas, we have an extensive network of agents that we can reach out to, vet, and connect you with to help you with a transaction either here in the United States or somewhere else in the world. That being said, remember, maybe simple. It ain't always easy. I'm Eric.
I'm Donna.
And we are Real Siblings.
Honest talk across your kitchen tile. Straight shooting service with a big city smile. From small town streets to skyline dreams, we bring down home care to your big city keys. To Midwest hearts in the Southwest scene, we treat every house like it's our own hometown dream.
Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Sibling. It Ain't Easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.